think we saw them.
Yeah.
Would you have the read?
I'm struggling in the glare of the lights.
Someone in school, she put in school phone, and she's someone's phone. She's a bit worried about her. She's getting she's lying down. She's a lot better. She's sitting in the chair. She's on stage. She used to be in that stage, just the food so thick.
Don't be soft and soft.
Good evening, everyone. I'd just like to first of all say, wherever possible, I suggest that people continue to wear masks when they're speaking, more so from the members of the public. So, first item on the agenda is apologies. We have received apologies from Councillor Haken due to work commitments, and also from Councillor Doherty. Unfortunately, her car broke down earlier and is unable to attend. We also have to advise that Councillor Sewell has not attended a meeting since the 15th of December, since the 15th of June, and on the 15th of December that will be 6 months that he hasn't attended the council meeting. We understand and know that Richard has been ill for some time, has had a stay in hospital, but unfortunately there's been no contact from Richard, and if it was my decision, I would grant an extension to this due to his illness, but regretfully I've been advised by the Chief Officer at NALC that Richard will, due to this situation, Richard will automatically forfeit his right to be a councillor from the 15th of December. And we will be sending a letter to him advising this, and also to the monitoring officer, so there will be, regretfully, another vacancy. It's not what I'd like to see, because as you're all aware, we already have an existing vacancy, so as of January we'll have 2 vacancies. That's all I have to say on that matter. Everyone happy with that? Or not happy, but that's unfortunately the situation we're in. Next, item 2 is declaration of interests. Anybody got anything?
Sorry, you've missed the County Councillor Andy Grant.
Oh, sorry, yes, sorry. Yes, on the apologies, we've had apologies from County Councillor Andy Grant and Borough Councillor Aidan Dobson, who are both attending a full Borough Council meeting this evening. We've had no apologies from PC Gary May. Now declarations of interest for the rest of the agenda. Anybody have any? No? Okay.
Christine does have an interest because she's a trustee.
Oh, yes.
On the okay. Minutes of the previous meeting. To confirm and agree the minutes of the meeting. A resident has requested that their words be used in the minutes of the public forum. Charlotte, our clerk, has agreed on this occasion, but has registered that minutes should not be a verbatim of a meeting, only that a decision, on decisions that are made.
So do you want me to just
Yeah, can you
read?
read that, what the change is?
So the change is, a resident asked the parish council why agenda 15 is private. If the complaint is against individual councillors, then it is not a parish council business. If it's against the parish council, then it's not private. It was urged that parish councillors in item 14 to vote against the motion to exclude the public. A brief explanation of GDPR was given. Concern was still noted by the resident.
So that the minutes of the previous meeting will be amended accordingly.
So can we have someone propose that you're happy with that, and the rest of the minutes, can someone propose that please?
I'll propose.
Can someone second?
Sorry.
Are you all in agreement?
Yeah. Right, we now have the... Now the item 4, the public participation period, which they'll be now adjourn the main meeting for 10 minutes. We have
We've had no reports
report.
with Adrian or Andy. Andy, I spoke with Andy this afternoon with regard to footpath crossing, but rather than bring it up now, we'll wait until that section. You obviously will receive the updates, the prime updates from PCNA.
so now it's we've had nothing at this moment in time from Adrian Thompson,
No.
Borough Councillor. So we now move on to questions from the public. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Brown.
At the last parish council meeting, it was stated that the PC paid for the pedestrian crossing survey. You must know that that's not correct. That didn't cost the parish a halfpenny. That's all I've got to say about that one. But that was paid totally
By donations. Yeah.
by donations from various people. And I'd also like to say
The crossing survey.
that the last meeting you were asked the pub about no parking signs on the fence. Obviously they didn't take any notice, or you didn't ask them one or the other, but I'm sure if you went there to speak to them, you should have mentioned something about a memorial at the service at the War Memorial, as that was absolutely disgusting that Sunday. And I mean, I blame you totally, because you should have done something about it. You've been a councillor now for 4 or 5 years maybe, and you know the procedure, and you should have stopped that from happening, especially if you went to see the pub about parking outside the pub and on the road. I don't know what you've got to say about that, but I mean, you should have done something about it. I mean, that was absolutely disgusting.
I totally agree with you. The situation on that day was not good. There is no instruction within the parish council that it was the parish council's responsibility to put out codes.
You've been a councillor for, what, 4 or 5 years,
It's
you
never-
know the procedure.
It has never been mentioned at a council meeting, Mr. Brown.
Yeah, but don't you listen to what's going on?
It has
Don't
never.
you know what's going
Listen
on?
to what I'm saying. I just said it's never been mentioned or minuted at a council meeting that it is the parish council's responsibility or duty, whatever you want to call it, to put out cones on that particular
Well,
site.
you didn't necessarily have to put cones, but if you went to see the landlord, surely you would have
It
mentioned,
has nothing to do with the landlord at the pub.
well, that was pub customers park,
It's public parking on a public highway.
who were at the pub.
That is
I mean,
Irrelevant.
that was absolutely disgusting anyway.
I agree,
And I think
we've-
that the
we've
parish
had-
council should have done something about it.
we will be doing something about it because we're now fully aware
We
of
wouldn't
it as a
have
parish
voted last
council,
year, would we?
whereas the previous parish council had made no note of that in the past, other than purchasing the wreath.
Well,
That's the only thing.
that's never been mentioned at all, but the parish council has always insured. And until the last few years, it ain't even been a problem, has it?
It must have been of benefit if those that have resigned had helped the existing parish council.
Well, that's rubbish. I mean, you took the job, you
Excuse me.
should know what you're doing. You weren't exactly new to the parish council.
As I said, I've checked back through the minutes and there's nothing minuted about the parish council's responsibility for putting out cones. It's minuted about the responsibility of the wreath and the parish council provided the wreath.
Yeah, but you,
In
I
future-
mean,
in
you
future-
knew anyway. You must
I
have
did
known.
not know, Frank.
Have you ever been to Remembrance
No,
Service in
that's
the
the
village?
first-
I
that's
don't know
the
if you lived in the village or in Clipsford.
What's that got to do with it?
Well, you must know. I mean, don't you
Why-
know there's a service at the memorial?
I do, yeah. I've never attended one until this time.
Anyway, that's too late
And,
to do anything about it
excuse
now.
me, I'd like you to revoke where you've expressed concern that I didn't say to the King's Arms.
Well, I don't know whether you did or
Well,
not,
why
but I
make
mean,
the
you
comment-
said you
why make
would
the
see
comment
the
you just
pub
made?
about parking.
I haven't seen the pub about parking.
You have?
Yes.
Well, surely when you were there, something should have been said about it.
About
Obviously
what?
that didn't, so
About
that's the
what?
end of
I said we spoke about the parking and the need for something to be done at the junction, which we'll come on to later on in the meeting. Thank you.
it. And also, track sign. Did you have a meeting with Highways? If so, in the interest of the public, I suppose, shouldn't Highways be claiming off Councillor Peake, Mr Peake, ex-Councillor Peake, who demolished the sign?
Is that fact or hearsay?
Yeah, that's fact. We can
How
prove it.
is it fact?
We can prove the photographs and the video. Him actually hitting the sign, he caught it with his truck, he backed up, and then when he pulled away again, he caught it with the trailer.
We
He left
have-
the sign.
We have had a visit by the streetwise inspector. We haven't had a report back from
We're going to talk
him
about
as
it
yet, but
later in
that's covered later on the agenda.
And not only that, where's the sign gone? The sign lay there, that wasn't too bad then, but now that's totally missing.
What's that?
I don't know where it's gone, I don't know whether Mr Peake can answer that one, whether he's taken it or not. But that's missing anyway.
Okay, thank
So
you.
there's nothing there at all.
Okay,
There's
anybody else?
13 dwellings there.
Anybody else got any questions? Yes, Andrew.
I have a question, Mr Chairman. I'd like to make a point about the footpath maintenance and the payment of £880 to Mr Crook. It was discussed at an earlier meeting, and I think it was you, but I might not be sure. We're going to ask Mr Crook to provide the dates on which he cut the footpaths. I don't know if that's been done. I don't know if this contract has been performance managed at all. But 8 cuts per year, I feel, is excessive, on top of the county council cut of 1. So that's 9 cuts a year. The footpath for which I'm responsible was cut 3 times last year. Myself twice, county council once. There's been no complaints about that, and it hasn't got out of hand. This £880 represents over £1 per metre of cost to parishioners. In another parish, Ashwellthorpe, they pay 6p per metre per cut, which represents to them a cost of between 12 and 18p per metre per year. Can anybody tell me why Fleggburgh are paying more than 5 times more for this service, which represents less than 10% cutting of all the footpaths in the parish? Has anyone performance managed it? Have they chased it up? Have they researched getting the footpaths cut better and cheaper? My opinion is that Mr Crook doesn't use the correct equipment, use a domestic lawnmower, not a rough cut flail mower for footpaths, use the wrong equipment, does them too often, and it's costing the parish dearly And the money could be better spent maintaining footpaths elsewhere.
Can I make a suggestion, Mr Chairman, that Mr Pate got approval to do the footpaths?
Excuse me. Frank, you've had your say. Can you let someone else have their say, please? You're only allowed
I
one.
was just making a comment.
Thank you, Andrew. That's, I'm not...
We know you're his puppet, so you've got to talk to him.
You finished, Mr Brown?
Yeah,
Can I proceed with the meeting now, please?
Yeah, you can speak to him.
Right. I'm not sure of the breakdown. You know that the Parish Council had 3 quotes for this work last year, and that was the option the Parish Council voted for at £800. We've heard previously your concerns about the number of cuts. We can have another look at it, but this invoice is on the agenda for discussion later anyway.
Absolutely. Who has the responsibility for footpaths and this research and new contracts and new contractors for the coming year?
It's the council, the full council.
Okay, so there's no currently there's no footpath warden.
There is a footpath warden, yeah.
Okay, it's a pity the footpath warden wasn't here this evening, and there's a pity he hasn't attended the last, I think, 4 meetings to update. 3 is it? Okay, I beg your pardon. To update parishioners on the state of footpaths and what's going to happen for the coming year. It's important.
I think it's important that we all pay attention to the footpath, not just leave it to one individual. It's all our responsibilities.
And so why then do you have a footpath warden if it's for everybody? I thought the role of the footpath warden is to be the focal point for any footpath issues, and there's probably obligations on that warden to attend and keep the parishioners and council up to date.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
Mr Chair, on the issue of the footpath, as far as I recall, the query was over the Clipsby one that you actually personally queried and said you thought it would be a good idea in the future for them to record how many cuts they were doing, because I believe it wasn't actually stated in the contract we've got, say with Crooks, it's so many times a year.
Yeah.
And I think it was at your suggestion that you said when they cutted it, it would be a good idea if they recorded it. And with regards to Andrew's thing about footpaths, I don't know, but isn't Mr Crook, is it a 2-year contract he's got at the moment?
I believe so, yeah.
So we wouldn't be looking at, I say we would be
Reviewing it,
well,
yeah.
So you wouldn't review it if it's doing a contract.
No, but we can review and ask
But
questions
the
about number of cuts.
Perhaps the councillors wouldn't know that, but that's
Because-
2 years.
Because from the cutting of the cemetery at Clipsby, we now have the invoice quite clearly states when and how many cuts have been made.
That's good. Well, that's what that was
Yeah,
about. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on.
Could I just make one very small point as well? I've noticed on the playing field, the contractor every cut seems to cut less and less and less, and this leads to the scrub gorse beside the footpath. That area getting bigger and bigger and bigger each week, each month.
Sorry,
So
you
the-
said playing field.
On the playing field,
Yeah.
the contractor leaves a broader margin on each cut, and so the gorse towards the footpath gets wider and wider, and the corner, which has become in the past a bit of a dumping ground behind the bowls green, that area becomes bigger and bigger. And the contract was with the Garden Guardian. A red line was drawn around the playing field. That was what he was supposed to cut. In my opinion, it's not been cut fully.
Okay, we'll take that on board and have a look and discuss with the Garden Guardian. Okay, moving on, matters arising to receive updates. Item 5.1 is the meet and greet session. With you, if you could give us an update, please.
Just to say, everyone, just bear with me because I'm trying to read these different circumstances, so just making sure I don't miss anything. Right, so just let me. Okay, so we had our first meet and greet on Saturday the 4th of December, and now the idea that I had was supported has now been put into practice. So we had our first one. I thank everyone who attended. The numbers were disappointing. Obviously, we didn't get many public turn up, but the good thing is it's a stepping stone to, and the people that did turn up, we gave information about plans that are coming up and what our ideas and projects are coming. So there was some good information shared in both directions. The other part of the whole meet and greet worked in respect of the fact that we have new members on the council. We was able to spend some time together just talking about general things about where we live and just getting into a bit of rapport with each other as well. So it's there, the meet and greet's there, it started. As I say, I would have, obviously everyone would have liked more numbers. But the idea would be to respect where we live, in respect of if we was to do, and this is up for review in respect, but we'll have one more and then we'll look at it. Doing it seasonal. So respecting where we live, obviously, autumn, summer, winter. And so that the issues that come up are always going to be changing, aren't they? So we put it out to everyone, so as they meet and greets, we'll keep it here for the time being, and then at some point we might move it around the village and other areas, maybe even do outdoor ones in the summer and things like that. It's just, it's all in the process of idea, but the first one happened, and ideas now become practical, and just to urge everybody that, it's your meet and greet, so we're there for you, so come along, have a cup of tea and have a chat. You're always welcome.
Okay, thanks, Richard. Anybody got any questions? Ricky? No? Okay, moving on. The SAM 2, the monthly figures, and this will include Speed Watch as well. There have been 2 new locations approved for Speed Watch, which is in Town Road and Main Road, opposite Broadland Sports Club in Fleggburgh. There was a Speed Watch session on the 2nd of November in Town Road, with the Speed Watch signs were on display, and there was a visible reduction in traffic speeds. In fact, the report suggested the maximum speed in the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit was 15 miles an hour. So obviously, Speed Watch does have an impact, albeit for the short period they're out during the sessions. There was a second session at the Broadland Sports Club on November the 3rd, where 6 vehicles were recorded as being in excess of 45 miles an hour. Further sessions are planned for December, and locations of these are to be advised. The Police Speed Watch Coordinator, based in Wyndham, will be issuing an annual summary in January, which will be circulated to all. Then coming on to SAM 2, the SAM 2 was in position on Main Road, Fleggburgh, for the period 18th of October to the 14th of November, monitoring traffic from the Fleggburgh direction, and it showed there was vehicle movements of 90,451 in that 4-week period, with 19% of those travelling in excess of 45 miles an hour. There was an additional SAM 2 for the period 1st of November to the 18th of November on Town Road. I think that should be Tower Road actually, in Fleggburgh, travelling from the Philby direction. That showed there was 17,928 vehicle movements, with 42% of people travelling in excess of 35 miles an hour. So that's an horrendous score for people not respecting the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit in that position. So that's the report for Speed Watch and SAM 2. Any questions on that, anyone? No? No? Okay. Moving on. The memorial token. This is a community plaque for the resilience during the COVID period, which has been organised by the Lieutenant of Norfolk. I'm now in receipt of that token, and we just now need to agree as to where we would like it placed. I have I think there are three options. One is here in the village hall. Second is the church. And third is the village sign out on the main road here. So at some stage, whether we, if anybody wants to propose that, I would, or have any questions, thoughts on that?
Well, obviously, if you wish to put it in here, then it'd be a good idea to ask the hall committee.
I was thinking it being more external than internal.
Yeah,
On the side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's a suitable position. So
Have you
someone
got
might,
is there a decent position on your side?
yeah, this the plaque is this big, and there's the brickwork or plinth that
So you're
sits
putting
on.
on the flint?
Yeah. So do you propose that?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favour of that? Yeah. Okay, moving on. The next item is the road crossing survey. Which is over to you again, Ricky.
Just an update for one on the road crossing. It's on the 9th of November, I emailed NCC Councillor Andrew Grant. I copied in Adrian Thompson and Brandon Lewis MP for Great Yarmouth. Okay, I updated Councillor Grant on the background of what's been going on so far, and then pushed to ask for a status update. And that was regarding the crossing and the second survey. Okay, I did point out that we've had no update from NCC regarding the crossing, and in the only meeting that he had attended in June 2021, after giving us the poll, he promised to give us a status update, which we haven't received. I did eventually get a reply from Brandon Lewis, or his office, and then that followed a reply from Andy Grant, who apologised for not getting information to us sooner. And what he did send on, he forwarded on the document Speed Management Study, April 2021. Now, he forwarded that on, and this is the survey that was carried out in September 2020. I'm sure everyone who knows about crossing and was involved before knows that was the survey done during the pandemic, or at the height. Right? So at this time, the document seems to show that the crossing isn't supported in this survey, okay? But the speed signs and updated school signs, etc., are recommended, or they're a recommendation. The document also refers to road classification changes, signs and surroundings in respect to the sign, the speeds and everything else. So again, it's not looking at the crossing as such, more the speed and the signage. But, and this is a big but, and we all know, if anyone who's been involved with this, right, is the time of this survey was inappropriate and unacceptable. It doesn't show the true picture of what the issues on the main road are, on main road, sorry, are. And we will still pursue to see the second survey done with no cost to the parish. Now, I know a member of the parish spoke earlier about the cost, and I agree, the money that was put forward, which would have been January into February 2020, came from three different directions, and I believe that all those three different directions should be rather angry that their money's not being used wisely by NCC in respect of the highways survey. We've not got what we paid for, in other words. So we will be pursuing this second survey, and specifically of no extra cost to the parish. But so, Councillor, where we're at the moment is that Councillor Andrew Grant, and I do know that Charlotte said she may have, spoke to, is it Andrew Grant today?
Yes.
I see, I haven't heard that info yet, so I may be saying something that's not still relevant, but I will carry on for a second. So Councillor Grant has asked for a meeting with the Parish Council to clarify this document, and so he can involve the people, the right officers that are involved with this document that they've said we hadn't seen before, okay? So basically the next action that I'm looking to take, or we are looking to take, is to set up a Parish Council working group, if it's required, to be able to meet. And then meet with Councillor Grant as a stepping stone, and the idea, and this has got to be discussed with, not just with the Parish Council, but make sure that the public would be interested in this as well, as a public meeting that's focused on the crossing, the highway problems, speed, pedestrian crossing obviously would be at the top of that in that respect, and obviously making sure that the document that's been given is explained in detail, and we get our second survey, and then we can go from there. Okay, so that's kind of the actions at the moment. Where I'm up with that, and I don't know if, as I said, regarding the crossing, if there was any more information today. Thank you.
Okay, so I would have let you know, but I spoke to him at 4:15 this afternoon. He's trying to get a meeting, obviously with the Parish Council, but he wants the author of this management study to be in attendance. He's looking to try and get that done in January. He's a bit frustrated because he's hit a bit of a brick wall with Norfolk County Council, but that is what he's pushing for at the moment.
That's good, because I did ask him to find the author, because the author's obviously on the document, and I said if that person in particular should be involved. So
yeah, can I just clarify, because obviously the document states April 2021. That isn't when it was taken place. This relates to September.
2020.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody, any questions? Okay. Well, the next item is the Highways Rangers visit that Charlotte will update us on.
Okay, right, so a number of items came through, some of them much larger issues within the parish, and other smaller ones such as potholes and so on and so forth. I am aware that a ranger has been and looked at some of the smaller issues. I contacted Justin LeMay. I've copied in Sean, the chair and vice chair, over this situation with the main issues of flooding that you have on the corner, Rugs Lane, also with regard to the parking situation. I think it would be really prudent to have Justin LeMay come out to visit councillors, which I've emailed today to see that he could make an appointment with one of the councillors to come out, because obviously you've all voiced to me that the situation is pretty serious and nothing seems to be done. It just continues to grow, so to speak. So I will keep you updated. Once I've heard back from Justin, I will forward that round to all councillors so that they're all aware of what his response is. Sean did a small report, which I believe you all saw, of various locations with regard to that is forwarded to Justin. Yeah, and like I say, I'll just keep chasing him every week now until I get some form of response, and hope we can get a meeting in place for you. I know Sean's very keen on getting a meeting here.
I think it's necessary. A lot of the issues have been the same issues for several years now, and they're not getting any better, they're actually getting worse. So
with regard to the sign was reported, the one that you stated. I have to apologise, I'll report it, I haven't chased it, so I will do that for you to find out where that sign is. It may well be that a highways ranger has taken it with a look to have it replaced. Okay, but I will pursue that.
Any other comments on the highway situation? No? Second. Okay, next item is the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations. From last month's, the October meeting, the Parish Council set up a small working group to discuss this. We've had a meeting. Lots of the suggestions, not by the Parish Council, but by the Lieutenant of Norfolk, the suggestions are that parish councils should have either supply and purchase beacons or have a bonfire on the night of the 2nd of June 2022 to celebrate the Jubilee. This involved expense for the parish council, and the consensus of opinion for the working party was that we didn't feel it appropriate to spend any parish money on such a beacon, and the bonfire would damage the playing field. But we will continue to work with the village hall and other parties like the church and the school to work forwards to having a celebration sometime over that weekend. The parish council would like to put some trees or a tree up somewhere in the village to commemorate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. But we believe there will be no expense in that. That will be the trees will be donated by the various conservation authorities that enable us to have free trees. We just need to decide at some stage between now and June as to where we would like to plant those trees. And I did receive an email from the chair of the village hall today, and they're in full support of working together to put another good event on for the community. Any questions on that? Okay. Moving on, item 6 is planning. The first item on here is a Broads Authority application, reference BA/2021/0436/house 8 Bishop Extension. This is a proposed single-storey rear extension to form an annex with a first floor balcony and a detached triple garage with storage floor over, and the property is Broadlands, which is on Main Road on the A1064 down by Acle Bridge. Anybody got any comments on?
Well, this is a large detached property that stands well alone in its very long plot of land which goes right across the marshes. So basically, as it's at the rear, they will be overlooking their own land, and it's not, as far as I could see, it was not near anything particularly, so therefore I see no objection to it.
Anybody else? Any comments?
I actually concur with the same as what Patrick said there. It's not overlooking anything else, it's not close.
I've been there, so I've seen the same.
Okay. The only concern I have is the large three-bay garage they want to erect at the front of the property, and if I can just, I concur with the thinking of the Broads Authority Historical Environment Officer, which if I can read his comments out, or sorry, her comments, which is, in terms of the garage, this is a large structure that is proposed to position just 3 metres from the front boundary, making it rather prominent. Can some clarification be given as to whether the existing trees will be retained and what area of the front garden it is proposed to use as a driveway? Given the large size of the plot and the existing substantial parking area to the rear, it says she says, I would prefer to see this building moved behind the house, adjacent to the existing parking area. And I think my personal opinion is I would agree with those comments. It will be very prominent at the front of that property.
Yeah, I made notes on the same thing. the rest of it didn't seem to impact on anything, whereas the triple garage and the mention of removing trees and hedges and stuff, it's just a case of making sure, if there was an area where that triple garage could go instead, but it's also to do with we've mentioned this on planning before. That is part of the national park there as well, isn't it, right now? And whether or not there's a plan in place for a tree replacement, and what is being taken out, because that's not clear on any of the document that was on the BA. It wasn't clear that what was being taken out in respect to trees, hedges, and etc.
I think the planning would have been better to have come in two parts, but it actually is coming in one part, because I have no issue with the extension at the rear, but I just think the three-bay garage at the front.
Well, you can comment. You can put a comment on there to say that depending on what you agree with is the position of the triple garage. Is the only comment that it would mean anything to anybody at the borough looking at that from a planning perspective. So its location and display and where it is. So even though it's not separated, the comment will separate that if we decide that comment was worthy of going on there with all. So I'll propose that the comment goes on, but
So we propose to support with that comment. Yeah? With the comment about the garage being repositioned to the rear of the property.
I propose that we support, but with the garage position to be
So in line with the environmental.
yeah. I'm trying to work the words so that they make more confidence to go on with the comment. Obviously, the position would be part of the planning regulation in that respect, and display where it is, and the location, and also the character of where it's going to be in front of. But also, again, it's coming down to trees and bushes and being taken up by anything in the place. It's a big thing.
Yeah.
It's just a comment. That's the thing we need to put on it at the end of the day. If it's just whether I propose it, and if anyone else.
No, I'd second that proposal. Any other proposal? No? Are they all in favour?
Yeah, comment.
Then the second application, reference 06/21/0698/F is a retrospective application for conversion of storage building, addition of a roof canopy, extension, erection of a boundary fence with entrance gate, the property being that of Dixon Property Limited, i.e. the King's Arms Main Road, Fleggburgh. Any comments on that?
Well, this is the second retrospective we've had recently, and although the items themselves don't seem particularly significant, even to the extent of wondering why it requires planning, for instance, a gate or what have you. But because it's retrospective, it puts us in a difficult position, because if we were to object to this on any grounds whatsoever, it would have a serious impact upon a business at a time when possibly, especially with the COVID restrictions now coming in or what have you, it could be placed in financial jeopardy. So I think if we passed it, if we put a proviso on it, a severe proviso, that as this is the second piece that has been retrospectively applied for, that in future, will he make sure, if he decides to change anything, that he gets the proper advice so that we can be asked to talk about a planning permission that is not retrospective, so that we can have a level playing field. I feel very strongly that we can't really say no, but that is taking advantage of us. And I think that would be much better if we said yes this time, but with a big stricture applied to him, saying, look, you can't do this again. Whatever you do, just make sure that you do it properly.
Just to clarify, you're saying that this is the second retrospective?
Well, we had the alcohol one, and that was retrospective.
Yeah. And we've also had another, in recent times, another retrospective planning application.
Yes.
And I think we do need to make a statement that retrospective planning will not be, trying to think what the word is, would not be, would not be looked at favourably or less favourably.
Well, very much so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a professional business, and it needs professional governance, whatever that may mean, need or be. But we are on the wrong end of this stick. We've got it. So I propose that we pass it, but with a severe stricture placed upon him, saying we're very unhappy with the retrospective nature of this, but we also appreciate, for the benefit of the village, it should obviously be allowed to go through.
Okay. I'll second that proposal. Any other proposals?
No.
No? Can we take a vote on that then?
I would just say, we do need to treat retrospective case by case, because if we paint a broad brush on retrospective theory, there must be, someone who put something up that may have realised they needed planning, and I'm talking about generally, for the whole village. We just need to make sure that we're not starting a way of thinking for every single, so paint the same brush for every single plan that comes in a retrospective planning I'm talking about. So I agree with what Patrick's saying, but we just need to be careful that we're not painting everybody with the same brush.
I agree with Patrick, because I think it's,
No, I don't, as I say, I
it's
agree.
not
but
the first time, I think.
No, that's
we
right,
should
and that's why I say it's got to be
really come down heavy
I
and
would
say,
say it would to be case by case.
yes. Because otherwise you're making a rock for your own back, aren't you?
Okay, so we have a vote on supporting that proposal? All in favour? All done? Yeah, all done, right, okay. Moving on to the next planning application, which is 06/21/069/CU, which was a proposed change of use from storage outbuildings to create a 2-bedroom holiday let, and alterations comprising new external cladding and new windows and doors. This is at Lilac Cottage on Main Road, Bidderby. There is an update on that, because I see that the Borough Council, they've already refused it. They already refused it.
I don't see why we support something that's already been refused, to be fair.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I don't see why we support anything that's already
No,
been refused.
I don't think we need to guide back on that now, do we?
Well, good practice would be to put no problem or something like that, so that we've seen it.
Yeah. Then there's planning decisions, which is 06/21/0787/F, which was a proposal to remove the existing conservatory and construct a new single-storey rear extension and painted render to existing bungalow. This was in respect of Willow Tree Farm on Flex Lane, and that's been approved. So moving on to correspondence. Do you want to do correspondence? Yeah.
There was an email sent in, there was concerns raised over the parking at St Margaret's Church on Remembrance Sunday. Keith, do you want to carry
Yeah,
on with that? Because you actually then...
Yeah, I had an email in from Reverend Sue expressing her concerns, which we've already spoken about earlier this evening, and have advised her that in the future will be now minuted that the Parish Council will organise cones, etc., to prevent traffic parking outside the church on a Remembrance Sunday. Question that's come to my mind since then is how does the church operate when there's funerals and weddings as well? But that's another issue that I'll take up with Reverend Sue. Next November, the Parish Council not only will supply and lay a wreath on behalf of the community, but we'll also put out some cones. We will work with the Village Hall, who already have some cones, and discuss with them as to whether we can use theirs or the Parish Council may acquire some others.
Mr Chairman, can I just speak a second? The Village Hall hasn't got any cones.
So whose are the cones that they
Cones,
use when...
Philby.
Sorry, say again?
They're Philby's cones.
They're Philby's cones, okay. Okay, I'll talk to Adrian Thompson and see if we can put those cones are stored here, in the Village Hall. Those cones are stored here in the Village Hall?
Yeah,
okay.
They got them for the chili.
Okay.
I went and collected them from Philby.
Okay. Thank you for that. I've already had discussions with PC Gary May, and he will help with providing cones for that purpose in the future. The next correspondence is the Treasurer's report of the Norfolk Day Committee. Christine, do you like to...
Yes. This was before I was elected onto the Parish Council. I was Treasurer of the Norfolk Day Committee, which I know was on as well. And we had donations came in, and we were asked that if there was any monies left over, they went to a cancer charity, and we received £300, we spent £151.22, and we had £148.78 left. So we decided, all of those that were on the committee decided to split it and give £74.39 to each of these two charities, which was the East Anglian Children's Hospice and the Big C, which we did, and I've got replies from both of them thanking us for the donation. But I also received a lovely letter from the children's one to say that they thanked us very much for our donation, and that this helps enormously, and which I'll pass over to you. I've sent copies to you, but that's the originals.
Okay, any questions on that? Okay, moving on. The next correspondence was an email from a resident with a query over a planning item from the last meeting. Charlotte has emailed the resident and clarified the decision. Do you need to say anything else on that? No? The next one was another email from a resident concerns of parking on the road outside the King's Arms and the hazards for pedestrians. This was also brought up at the last meeting, and it's an ongoing situation. Charlotte has already commented on in moving forward with County Council with the other issues of highways issues within the village. Moving on to finance. First item is to confirm the bank statements, which these have all been circulated. Just pour any questions on the bank statements? So noted as being okay. Next item is to approve payments for in December, which you can all see from the list. There's one further invoice to approve, which is the Garden Guardian for cutting of the playing field and churchyard. Which
That's a total of £4,623.17.
which maybe before we pay that, we need to have a discussion with them about what they're actually cutting, as per the comments from earlier from the public forum. So do you want me to talk to them, or what shall I?
You advise me what you wish me to do. I'm
Okay.
happy to.
I'll pick up the contact details and I'll talk to them, because they probably need a site visit here
Right,
for them to discuss, okay? Before we pay that.
Okay, if you can just sort of focus on the rest.
Yeah, so is the rest. We've got the payments for the clerk for November and December, and also the use of home office. And we've got the Fleggburgh churchyard and the Broad Society, the Norfolk Elk for the free planning training, and also for the an invoice for £880 from Simon Crook for footpath maintenance.
Because £80 of that was looking after the tree that fell down, wasn't it?
Yes, but there's no. That's never been minuted previously that happened, and the £80 was never discussed